Hello, everybody, and welcome. Hope everybody is doing well. Give another second here for everyone joining in here on Zoom. Great. So my name is BJ Atarian. I am a DaVinci Resolve Blackmagic certified instructor for DaVinci Resolve. I'm also an Apple certified instructor for Final Cut Pro. And today what we'll be doing is we will be doing a Power Tips webinar here. And I'm just going to reset my Zoom settings to get us started. A second here. And if you could mute yourselves, if you haven't, as you come in, that would be great. And just before we get going, a little bit about my setup here. I have the computer I'm working on right in front of me, a computer that I get to see what everyone else sees back here. I also have the chat back there. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and throw them in the chat. And I'm hearing some people, so let's see if I can mute you. Bear with me a second here.
Natomiast PZPN już w czwartek zapowiedział, że nie bierze pod uwagę wyjazdu do Rosji i oczekuje przeniesienia meczu na neutralny teren. Po zimowej przerwie na boiska wracają piłkarze drugiej ligi. Pierwszy
Okay. And that is not good. Where are we getting audio from? Okay, I think we don't hear anybody anymore. Good, we are good to go now. Sorry about that. All right, so anyway, like I said, my name is BJ. I am a Blackmagic certified instructor for DaVinci Resolve. I also instruct for Apple's Final Cut Pro. I'm a certified instructor for that as well. Today, we are going to be doing a power tips for DaVinci Resolve. And in it, we're going to learn a few things. Multicam, for one, we're going to look at multicam. We're also going to go ahead and look at the color page. So we'll get into nodes, power windows, look a little bit at color correction, applying effects, and then copying corrections between different clips that we have. And then the really cool thing, I save it for the end, is the magic mask. And I'll show how we use the magic mask as well. Resolve is available in two flavors. First of all, it's cross-platform, as we see. We can get it for Mac, Windows, Linux. The question is, do you get the free or do you get the studio? So what I have here, some more Zoom people, what I have here is just what's on the Blackmagic website. So if you go to download the software, this is what it tells you what the differences are. Now, I teach this class, and up until this year, I just used the free version. So you pretty much, for pretty much everything you're going to want to do, you're going to want to do the free version. The reason why I have the studio version now is because I love the magic mask, and that's only available in the studio version. But really, if you're just getting into Resolve and you're not sure which one you need, go the free route. You can do almost everything you would need to do, with the exception of a few effects and some other HDR stuff with the free version. Now, we're going to be working through a fairly quick, fast-paced webinar. We're going to show some concepts, but we're only here for about an hour. So we can't go too much into depth in any one thing, and we can't really work the projects together. If that is something that is interesting to you and you want to do those things, then jump over to the FMC website. And there are courses here. And I'll just type in DaVinci. And then I just started typing it, and look at all these different color classes that they have here. The introduction to Resolve, the color grading and advanced color grading. There's now a fusion class that they're offering. And on these classes, go much more in depth, much slower paced too. And the thing too there is we all work the projects together. So it's a total understanding of what we're actually doing, as opposed to, say, where I'm just going to be showing you some different things. So like I said, if you have any questions, put it in the chat. If you're interested in some of those more in-depth classes, they're here on the FMC website. So I am going to jump over to Resolve. Now I've already launched it. And when you launch Resolve, this is kind of like your splash starting page. This is the project manager. Yours might look a little different than mine because I have the databases open. Might look like that when you start. And I'm just going to go ahead and click on this untitled project. And when I do that, Resolve opens up. It'll either open me up in the cut page or the last page I was on when I was editing. And so what is the cut page? Well, Resolve has actually 7 pages along the bottom, and each is almost like its own program. And so what we'll do is let's just look really quickly at each one of these pages. Starting from left to right, the media page, this is where you can ingest your media, you can organize it, bins, smart bins, you can put metadata on your clips. And you do that, and you do that here in the media page. And Resolve is roughly designed to work from left to right. So along the bottom of the screen, those pages, you kind of work from the left side on over to the right side. And if I move over a page, I go to the cut page. This is the newest page inside Resolve. For those of you who are familiar with Final Cut, this borrows a lot from Final Cut. The idea with this page is that it's kind of like your down and dirty edit. You bring a clip in and you need to turn this thing around quickly. It's designed for fast, efficient editing. And you do that, and you can even export directly from this page if you want to. But let's say you need to do something more than the cut page is able to do. Oh, well, then you move your way on over to the edit page. And this is more of your traditional editor. The traditional edit page that comes with the Resolve feels a little like Premiere too, if you're familiar with Premiere. And you can do much more fine tuning of your edit as you work on this page. And then when you're done with your edit page, moving along, this is Fusion. So for those of you who are familiar with After Effects or Apple's Motion, this is Blackmagic's version. It's their motion graphics compositor. And what's so cool about all of these different pages is they're built right here in Resolve. So you don't have to, if you're in Final Cut, you don't have to go over to Motion, or if you're in Premiere, you don't have to go to After Effects. You can do everything you want to do just by clicking on a different page in Resolve. We're not going to really touch the Fusion page today, but it is there, and it's a really powerful program. We are going to spend a lot of time on the color page. This is the bread and butter of Resolve. Pretty much, if you've seen something on TV or movies, odds are it's come through this page at some point. This is the gold standard for color, and it's what Resolve was known for before they started adding on to all these other pages. And we're going to come back to this page in just a few minutes. Moving along to the right, when you're ready to do your audio editing and your audio posts and sweetening, you can do that right here in Fairlight. Fairlight is a completely functioning digital audio workstation, so a DAW built right into Resolve. So if you're familiar with Audition or Logic or some of the other DAWs out there, well, this one is right here, and you can do pretty much everything you need to do right here in Fairlight. And then when we're done and we want to ship this out, we go to the deliver page. Now, I said you can deliver from any of the other pages, and you can, but that's a quick export. This is a much more granular export. So you can change whatever settings you want to change over here. And then I'm just going to drag this along on the top, try to drag it, and you can see we can push this to any number of places. I saw Vimeo, H264, H265, either flavor of Final Cut, Premiere, Avid, Pro Tools. We can do an audio only as well. Watermarking, all of that stuff we do in the deliver page. So again, it's designed to work left to right, media, cut, you make your way through the edit, then you do your motion compositing, you do your color and audio sweetening, and then you go ahead and render it out. We are ultimately going to land on the media page to start. I'm back on the media page here, and I want to bring some footage into Resolve. And one cool thing about Resolve is you can do that. You can do pretty much everything in multiple different ways. So if I want to bring footage in here, it's going to go up File, Import, Media. Notice there's a keyboard shortcut right there, Command-I. It's another way to do it. I can also drag and drop. I'll just bring the media in for now. And I was working on a different project earlier, so I'm going to go to my desktop and Resolve FMC webinar. And I'm going to go to my multicam folder. I'm just going to select these clips here. So I'm going to select the first one, shift click, to select the last one and open. And by the way, if I didn't say it already, I am on a Mac laptop. So being that this is multiple flavor, you know, Command, if you're on a PC, Control, Alt, Option, you know that I'll be referencing the Mac ones through the webinar here. So I brought the footage in, and what I have here is footage from a band called Jitterbug Riot. It's a band, and we're going to be working on a multicam of a song that they just put out. And so the clips appear in the media pool. Now, one thing to note, these clips are here, but they aren't actually copied into Resolve. So if you're coming from another NLE, some of the other NLEs like Final Cut, you can actually copy it in. In Resolve, you don't do that. You reference the media, which is great to keep the files small. The thing to remember about that, though, is if you do that and you move the media, like if I move it off my desktop, I'm going to have to relink the files in order to edit them. So I've got the files in here, and I'm going to jump over to the edit page. Now, here's my edit page. One good thing to know about Resolve, especially if you get really into the weeds, say on Fusion or color or Fairlight, things can kind of get lost, moved around. A great way to reset the interface is just go up to Workspace and then go down to Reset UI Layout. So that gets you back to the default settings for the page. And I'll do that a couple of times throughout the webinar. And I did it here so we can see what we have. And on the edit page, we've got our media clips over here in our media pool. We have a source viewer, a timeline viewer, our toolbar, and then we also have our timeline area down here. Here are those same clips that we just imported in. Some more from Zoom. And I'm going to go ahead and create a timeline, and I'm just going to do it by hitting Command N for new timeline. There, try it again. There we are. My timeline window comes up, and the name of the song that the Jitterbug Riot Band is singing is called Miserable Girl. So that's what I'm going to call this. I created it, and I've got my timeline right here. Now, we talked about on the media page keeping things organized, and I'm a big fan of keeping it organized, especially if we have more and more clips. And so the way you can keep, one way you can keep things organized inside of Resolve is by creating bins. And that's what I'm going to do. And to create a bin, I'm just going to go ahead and right click in a gray area here and new bin. I also have a keyboard shortcut for that. So I have this new bin that appears and it's ready to be named. So I am going to go ahead and I will call this bin Miserable Girl. And now I have a bin. Nothing has changed. I'm still in my master bin. And in fact, all I've done is added another folder. So we have more stuff in here. That is this bin inside the master bin. So let's organize. I'm going to select the first clip and I'll shift select all these other clips. The only thing I really don't want is the timeline. So I'm going to drag all these clips into the Miserable Girl bin. And now when I do that, it again, organization. So in my master bin, I've got my timeline and I've got this other folder, Miserable Girl. I click on that. There are my other clips. If I wanted to, I could create a bin for timelines. I could also do a smart bin for timelines. Again, organization is key, especially the larger and larger the projects that you go. So we're organized now. We feel pretty good about this. The next thing I need to do is actually make a multicam clip. And I haven't done that yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on the Miserable Girl bin. And when I do that, I have a whole series of menu options here. And I'm going to create a new multicam clip using selected bin. And when I do that, I now have my clip window that appears with options. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this. So I'll call this Miserable Girl. And since this is our multicam, I'll just add the word sync here at the end. Now, the frame rate is pulled from the clips, so we're good there. This angle sync, though, is important. And if I click the drop down, I have these different choices here. In and out reference, in and out points. So what we're doing here is we're going to tell Resolve how we want to sync, what we want Resolve to use to sync these clips. So in and out points, if they were all recorded with time code, that we could do time code. markers. So if I put markers on each one of these clips, I could have Resolve line up the clips based on markers. And you notice I skipped one of them here, sound, because that's what I'm going to choose. So all of these clips were recorded with some sort of camera microphone. So just the onboard microphone. So that did have audio associated with that. And so I'm going to use that camera microphone to sync all of these clips up. And I also have down here at the bottom, that audio track is a high quality recording of the song. So that's kind of what I want there. I'm going to go ahead and click create. And Resolve analyzed the clips and it synced it based on what that audio was. So we now have some more stuff over here in our media pool. We've got this other clip, and you can see it's got these 4 little squares in the bottom left. That indicates that we have a multicam clip. And if I hover over it, you can see it's exactly what it looks like. I'm going to come back to that in just a second. Again, to keep things organized, we now have this other folder called original clips. And in that bin, all my original clips, exactly what it says it is. Again, just trying to keep things organized, and Resolve is trying to help us do that. So I have this multicam clip. I'm going to double click on it to keep it in the source viewer. What do I actually do with this? So each angle is displayed in a separate box. And the first thing I want to do is I want to play this to make sure that we are actually in sync. So I am going to just hit the space bar to play this, and I'll stop talking so we can see what we have here. You're just another pretty girl. It's something to prove and nothing to lose. And I'll stop. It looks like we are in sync there. So this is good. That's what we want. If you notice, though, when I drag this back to the beginning, a lot of my angles have disappeared. And it's okay, though. The reason why they've disappeared is because all the cameras didn't start recording at the same time. They all started recording at different time. So if I hit space again, you'll start seeing that these things are going to start popping on just like they are there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this out. Notice we aren't hearing any audio. And the reason we're not hearing any audio is because the active angle happens to be our master track here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to want to let this get to the beginning of the audio. So let's let it go for a second. And there we are. I'm going to use my J, K, and L keys, keyboard shortcuts for transport controls, to line it up to the beginning of the audio. So I hit K to stop it, J to back it up. I'll go a little further to maybe right about there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and set an in point on this. I'll use the letter I for in. I could also use my on-screen transport controls here, in and out. And I'm happy. I'm going to drag this down into the timeline. And I'll play it again. Oh, and we don't hear it. And the reason we don't hear it is because we still are in our source viewer. If you're not too familiar with Resolve, the way you can tell you're in your source viewer is the one that is lit up in red here. And so this is my source viewer. I need to be in my timeline viewer. The keyboard shortcut to toggle between the two is just the letter Q. And when I hit Q, now this is in red. And if I hit the space bar, there we go. I don't see anything though. And the reason why I don't see anything is because our audio track is still our active track. There's no video track here for us to see yet. So we'll get to that in just a second. So I'm going to go ahead and give us a little bit more space to do the next step. So I'll close the media pool. Okay, so that's good. I get to see a little bit more here. Yeah, we're good just like that, I think. And we need to move from our timeline controls and our transport controls to our multicam controls. And to do that, drop down is right here, and we click multicam. And before I click it, watch what happens right in here. Okay, so that's exactly what happened. We lost our transport controls, but we do have our multicam controls. So we're on the right track to where we need to be. Is the audio track? Yes, it is for this Rip. For this, it is, because now I'm going to go down here and show you how to change it. So the question was, is the audio track added in the first position on purpose? Yes, because now I can go down and I can right click and I can change the multicam angle. So I'm going to go ahead and just switch it to angle 2. And when I do that, there we go. Now we have angle 2. So yeah, good question and timely question, because that's why I changed it. So great. So now we have an angle here that actually has a video track. And the multicam, we talked about these multicam tools briefly. So we see in the multicam editor, this top left one is in green. That's my active audio angle. The blue is my active video angle. And I have 3 choices here. The one that is default selected is to switch between audio and video every time I select a clip. The one to the left of that is video only. The one to the right of that is audio only. And since we have good audio here, because we know we've got that angle 1 audio master track, we don't really need to do anything with the audio. So I'm going to go ahead and select the video. So now when I get to do this fun part here, I'm only going to be changing the video itself. So what is the fun part? All we need to do to switch between angles is to play our timeline and just click on the angle that we want. So just by clicking over the clip. So I'll do this. I'm not going to do the whole song. I'll do the first few, maybe a minute, and we can do this together. So I'll stop it there. You know the gist of what I'm doing here. Now, rule on multicam that has always been taught to me is go with your gut on this when you're going through your first pass at this. So in other words, where you think you need to click, go ahead and click. More times than not, you'll be right. And then what if you're not? Well, that's when we can go back and fix some of these things. Again, so it's a real rough cut. If I wanted to change the angle, let's play over, let's see here. Go back to the beginning. So let's say I wanted this to be the drummer also. So I just hover over the angle itself, and then I option click on the angle I want up here. And when I do that, it switches to the drummer. Start with the drummer. And maybe instead I wanted to keep the drummer longer before going to this next angle. So your ripple and roll controls, they all work here. So if I click on it, as long as I have media handles, which obviously I do, and I see that here too by the green, I can roll that. And when I do that, I'm extending that first angle. And then let's say I want to get rid of that. I can just delete the angle altogether. And Rip, I don't know the answer to your shortcut question because I don't use the keyboard shortcuts for angles. However, if you're not sure where to find it, obviously you can search for it. The other thing you can do is you can go up to DaVinci Resolve, keyboard customization, and you can search for it right here and it would tell you as well. But I just use this because it's just what I do. Yes, I'm sorry, I don't have the answer on that one. But so as you can see, you can finesse this however you want to finesse it. Deleting the cuts, switching the angles, rippling the cut or rolling the edit points, however you want to do it. There's one other thing I want to show you on this, and I'm going to FN left arrow because I am on the laptop, and that gets me back to the beginning of the timeline, and I'm going to command equals. It's really command equals, but it's command plus. Equals brings you in, or plus brings you in, minus brings you out on the timeline. And if you notice, there are these little white handles up here that appear. and they're at the beginning and end of every clip, and they're at the audio clip too. That is my fade handle. So if I click and drag this out, I now have this fade that comes in. I'm going to Command Z to undo that. Another, and again, it's on audio and video, you can do either end. Another thing that you can do is, let's say I want to fade it way over here. I could drag these manually if I want to, or what I could do is I can go up to trim, and then I can go to, where is it? Fade into playhead, or fade out to playhead if I want to. And I do that here, and it gives a nice fade both on the audio and the video. So that could be handy, especially if you want it to line up exactly to your playhead. You can use that, that shortcut. So that's a little bit of multicam here inside of Resolve. But Resolve is known for color, and we haven't talked about color yet. So that's where I want to go next. It's the industry standard for color. And what we're going to do is I'm going to go back to that project manager. If you're not sure of the shortcut to get you back there, it's this little house down here in the bottom right corner, and you hover over it, it says project manager. There it is. And I'm going to create a new project, and I'm going to call this, we'll save the other one. We'll call this multicam. And then my new project, I'm going to go ahead and call this color and click create. And it brings me right back to the edit page because that's what we were in, and that's fine. I'm going to reset our workspace. So we're back to what it looked like, or it should look like in its default setting with our media pool. And I need to go ahead and get some footage in here. Now, earlier we did this on the media page. We can do this in the edit page as well. The same ways, really. File, import, media. This time I'll click off that and I'll use Command I, does the same thing. Can drag and drop as well. And I just need to navigate away from my multicam clips. And I'm going to go to my color clips. And there are 4 clips in here. I'm going to select all 4 of them and bring them in to our media pool. And let's look and see what we have on these clips here. I'm going to click this first one, double click it to open up into the source viewer. Just dragging along here. Okay, it's a bike rider. And I like this bike rider, but I don't want all that footage of the trees at the beginning or him from the back. I'm just going to take it from right here. So like I said, I could hit I or O, or I can use the interface and mark an endpoint. And when I do that, notice I have my playhead marker here, everything beforehand, grayed out, everything after is brighter. I'm going to go ahead and play over a little further by hitting L. And I'll take to about there. That looks good. I hit K to stop it, and I'll use my mark out point here. And then I'll just drag this down into the timeline. And these other 3 clips are of this girl playing in her room. And let's more zoom people in. I'm happy with these 3 clips just the way they are. So I'm going to select them all, click on the first, shift click on the last. So just drag them into the timeline here. By the way, if you aren't sure of the shortcut to fit everything to the timeline, it's Shift Z. And one of the unique things in Resolve compared to some of the other NLEs is, let's say I want to go back to the way it was, I can hit Shift Z again, and it brings me back. So Shift Z isn't just fit the timeline, it's to toggle it in Resolve. So that's kind of cool. And I'm just hitting Shift Z to go back and forth. Okay, so I've got the clips that I want just like they are. Let's go do some coloring here. Let's get into that color page. So I click on color, and the color page is broken down a little bit differently than the edit page. Again, making sure that I am in the default reset UI layout, and I am. Now, I will say one important thing about the color page. Depending on your real estate, on your screen, it might be a little different than mine. I'm on the laptop, I'm on the 16-inch, and so Resolve will stack some of the different areas to make better use of the real estate in your screen. I'll show you where that is here in just a second. But first, let's look at this interface. In the top left, we have the gallery. Right now, we have nothing in the gallery. This also could be where we have our LUTs, and I'm just clicking along the top. Media pool, I'm going to stay with the gallery. We are going to create a still in just a few minutes, and it will live here. We work our way across. Here's our viewer. That one's self-explanatory. It's on loop right now, which is fine for what I need to do. And then nodes. This is our node editor. So this is our first introduction into nodes in this class. And it is a different mindset. Fusion and Color use nodes in Resolve. And it is the rough idea is it also reads left to right. And the idea is to keep things better organized. You do each thing in an individual node. So a node is kind of like a thought versus in other programs and even on the edit page and cut page here where we stack things. Here, we don't actually stack things on top. We do things in individual nodes. This in the top right corner here is our node editor. And then the other thing that's a little bit different here is we have two different representations of the timeline. First is our picture thumbnail representation, which is right here. So each individual clip has a thumbnail that represents that clip. Then right below that, we have a mini timeline, and they're all there too. You can see I've got 4 different clips. I'm just hitting the down arrow to toggle between the clips. But what that mini timeline does is it gives us an idea of the duration of the clip. Because notice, I can't tell that with the thumbnail, but I can tell that in the mini timeline. And just a quick deviation from the color page, if I go to the cut page, it is somewhat similar where you have 2 timelines. You've got this mini timeline, which again, exactly the same way it does on the color page. And then you have a zoomed in timeline down below where the playhead always stays in the middle. So a little bit of look and feel similarity between the color and the cut page. So I'm back over here on the color page here. And then this is the area where it might be a little different on yours versus mine. In the bottom left, I have my palettes. Usually I can do my primary adjustments. And so I usually see, you might see the color wheels here. And then if you have a bigger resolution monitor, here in the middle, you would see your curves. For me, they're stacked on top. And then in the bottom right is where we see our keyframes and our scopes in just a second. So, all right, let us look at this clip. So I'm going to play over this clip. Okay, this is good. It's our biker. The problem is we've got this advertising right here. And we need to go ahead and mask that out. And we're going to, oops, sorry, one too many keyboard shortcuts there, or clicks on the keyboard. So we're going to mask that out. And the way we're going to do that is use something called a power window and then apply it with an effect. Now, I talked a little bit about nodes already, and nodes being a thought. And the first node that you have in your pipeline on the color page should be your color correction. I am going to say that I'm happy with the color correction, the color grading on this clip. I want to keep things organized. So I'm going to right click on this. I'm going to change the node label, and I'll just call this color. But everything is a thought. So I need another node here. Okay. And the way I get another node is by clicking Option S. And again, just like the pages along the bottom of the screen, it is designed to read from left to right. So we read, this is our first thing we do. The output of this goes to the input of the next node, and so on and so forth, taking us back to the end of our project. What we need to do here is we need to mask this out. So to do that, I'll right click on this. We'll change this label and we'll call this one power window. Probably could come up with a better name than that, but we'll run with that for now. So, all right, I like this big clip. I'm happy with the color. I'm not happy about the logo. We're going to add an effect to get rid of that logo, or to blur the logo, I should say. So we have our new node here, and what we're going to do is make sure we're at the beginning of the clip. I'll FN left arrow again to get me there. And I am going to change over to the power windows, which is right here. And I click on that. Now, what are power windows? They're essentially shapes. But the shapes let you manipulate something either inside of the shape or outside of the shape. So we have square, we can draw our own, we have circle, and we're going to use the circle one. I'll click on that. And when I click on that, I get on-screen controls. Notice also what is going on in my power window node. If I go back up here, all of a sudden, everything outside that circle is grayed out. And so we know we're going to be manipulating what's going on inside of that circle. I could invert this if I want right here, so it's the exact opposite. I'm fine with what I have. What I want to do is I'm just going to manipulate these controls to make this smaller. And then you can feather and do whatever else you want here with the on-screen controls. I'm going to drag it over there. It's still probably a little bit big. So I'm going to tighten it up a little more and place it right there on top of that logo. So that's great. Now, and you can really barely see it. It's really tiny, but you can see the area I'm going to manipulate here on the actual power window node. But I haven't done anything. I've just gotten the area that I want to manipulate. So Resolve ships with quite a few different effects for each page. And the effects live right here in, move zoom out of the way for a second, in the effects tab. And you can scroll through and you can see all of the different effects that there are here. The one that I am interested in is back up at the top. It's this mosaic blur. And I want to apply it to that power window node. All I do is just click and drag it on there. And when I do that, you can see on screen, okay, it blurred it. It did. I can manipulate that, adding more pixels, taking away pixels here. I can change the cell shape. I can do all kinds of different things if I want here. I'm happy with it right like that. Now I've got it blurred, but if I were to play this, it's going to be blurred for that first frame, and that's it. So I need to have Resolve track it. And Resolve has a tracker here in the color page. There's also a tracker in the Fusion page. And then I'll show you Magic Mask in just a minute here. Tracker lives right next to Power Windows. So if I click on it, and then I have these tracker controls. I can also track by removing some of these if I want. I can track by clip, by frame. We're good for what we need to do. I'm going to just tell it to track. And I tracked it forward. I want to get another track if I want. I can track in reverse. Either way, I've got it tracked already. So again, that's pretty cool, pretty quick that they did it. And so great. So now I have this. I want to actually see how it works. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off my power window. So to do that, I'm just going to click off and give me more real estate. So I'm going to close the effects. I'll even close the gallery for a minute. Heck, I can even close nodes just so we can see this a little bit better. And I'll play it. And there we are. So think about what we did there really quickly. We used an effect along with the power window and had an introduction to nodes. Obviously, just scratching the surface on this, but even just scratching the surface, look how powerful this is that we're able to do that. So that's cool. I'm going to stop it. I'm going to reset my workspace. But again, we're talking about color and we haven't actually done any color yet. So we're going to get into that now. We're going to go ahead and do some color corrections using our scopes. So the rule of thumb on this, and I'm not a colorist, but I do know that if I stare at something for a long enough time, my eyes are going to see it a little differently than it probably actually is, right? We've all seen that, even if we just stare at dots. So they fool us. They're part of the color grading process for sure, but we also have tools that can help us with the color grading process. And the scopes live in the bottom right corner, this icon right here. And if I click on it, I get this is my parade right now, but I have a drop down and I can choose all of the different scopes that there are there. I can also change how I view them in the settings. I'll click off that for now. And this is cool. If I had a second monitor, I can pop the scopes out altogether and move them off to a second monitor. Now that's great. What if I don't want to see 4 scopes and I just want to see 1? Well, I have controls right here. There's 2, 4, so on and so forth. And I can choose each If I have 4 up here, I can choose here which ones I want. And of course, there are the settings right next to it. I don't have a second monitor, so I'm going to pop this back and end up on the parade here. Now, the parade is a graphical representation with our primary colors, and it also is read left to right with each individual primary color. So we have red, green, and blue here. And it's also, if you read from the bottom up, 0 is absolute black. 1023 is absolute white on a Rec 709 footage, which is what this is. And then the individual waveform that we see here is called the trace. You want to keep your traces between 0 and 123. Anything beyond that is going to create clipping. So I'm going to switch to the waveform. And the waveform really is kind of like our brightness of an image. We can adjust the contrast here. And we're going to do that using our color wheels. And then we're also going to do it using the color curves. And so let's go ahead and start actually doing some color grading here. I'm going to click on this last clip. By the way, before I do that, if I apply a color effect to a clip here in Resolve, whether it's grading or in our case, the power windows with the effect, I get this kind of rainbow icon around the clip. That's how you know that there is something applied to that clip. And then you can go over and in this case, you can see everything that we applied to the clip right here on the node. I'm gonna go ahead and select clip 4 here. And I can look at my scopes now and see, okay, this is kind of a flat image here. Everything is kind of hanging out in the midtones. There's nothing really up here. There's nothing really down here. I'm going to change over to my color wheels. And these are red, lift, gamma, gain. That for normal talk is kind of like shadows, midtones, and highlights. But they call it lift, gamma, and gain in the color world. This last one, offset, is overall. So if I wanted to push the overall clip one way, I can do that with the offset. These are my wheels. And then below the wheels, there are these master sliders down here along the bottom. And the rule of thumb is you start with either your lift or your gain, and then you work on the gamma to taste. So you start with your shadows or highlights, and then work on your midtones. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag this master wheel to the left under lift. And as I do that, notice what's going on in my scope. I'm pushing everything down, which is what I want to do. So let's say if I push it to there, and then I'll go ahead and I'll do the same thing with gain, but this time I'm going to push it to the right because I want to bring it up. So I'm just dragging this up, trying to note my scope so I don't push anything out of range. Now I can go back and I can adjust my gamma to my liking. So let's say I want to pull this up even a little bit more. And we get into this tug of war here when we do this with the gamma, because notice I'm pulling it up, but notice what's going on to my shadows. They're also coming up. So fine, I'll just come back over here and drag it down a little bit more. Oh, not that far. Okay, so I like that, I think. Let's see the difference before and after. So there are 2 ways you can do that. First of all, I can go up to view, and I can go bypass color infusion, bypass all grades. Notice the keyboard shortcut, because I'm not going to come in here and do this every time. Shift D. So I'm just going to select off that. I'm going to Shift D to toggle. That's before, that's after. Well, there's definitely an improvement there. There's definitely more contrast in that clip. So before we move on to the curves, what happens though if I really drive these highlights up? I'm going to just push them up. Okay, and you can see it's all up here. We are now clipping on a lot of these different colors. And the way that actually represents itself on the image itself is we start losing detail. It's not really white, it's just kind of gone. And you can kind of, you can see that on Zoom. And so that's what happens when you clip, and you don't want to obviously do that. So I'm going to Command Z that to bring it back down to where we need it to be. And like I said, we can do, and by the way, that happens also if I push it down, the exact same thing would happen, only in reverse. We'd start losing detail in all the shadows. So I'm going to go to color. Excuse me, I'm going to go to my curves. And when I do my curves, there are several curves. The custom curve is what I see, but I can toggle through these different curves. There's hue versus hue, the hue versus sat, and so on and so forth. Toggling over, I'm going to stay on the custom curve for what I need to do. And I'm also going to go ahead and select the middle clip this time. Now, the way that the custom curve works is this top control point is our gain. So it's our highlights. And if I drag to the left, I'm pushing it up. If I drag it down, I am pushing it down. I'll leave it where it is. And the same thing for this is represents our shadows. So I can drag it to the right and push it down, drag it up, and you see we're going way up when we do that way. So I'll look at my scopes and I'll do the exact same thing. So if I want to drag this up, so I get my levels to where they kind of need to be, and then I would drag this to the right to bring them back down. Great, I've done my highlights and I've done my shadows. What about my midtones? So the way you do your midtones is by adding points along this curve. To add a point, you just click on it. And when I add that point, now I can adjust the midtones accordingly. So I have a lot of granularity here. Let's bring this down some more. Can maybe put another one down here if I want to. And again, like I said earlier, it's a tug of war when we do this. Now, if I want to see how that, first of all, if you've heard the expression of the S curve, well, you can kind of see where that's coming from there. But let's say I want to see how far off this is from my original line. I option click, and that's my original line, and I can snap it to that if I want to. But I'll shift D to see how it looks. Definitely, it is better than what we started with. For a quick color grade with the curves, it's not too bad. So that's good, but what if I want to go ahead and apply the color corrections between shots? So I like this grade, and I want to apply it to other shots here in my timeline. These three clips look like they pretty much been shot at the same time with the same camera. So if I want to apply this grade to my other clips, there are a couple of ways I can do it. First, I'm going to click on this last clip. This is the one we did with the wheels. And if I go up to color, oh, hang on, that's selected. Why didn't it do it? Oh, I went up to clip color. There we are. And I want to apply the grade from, let's say, 2 clips before. I can click on that. Now, 2 clips before was this, and we didn't do anything to that. So notice it is no longer a graded clip. That's okay. I can go up to that same place again and apply it from 1 clip before, 1 clip prior, and now it took the grade from our S curve and it applied it to this clip as well. So that's good. That's one way we can do it. Another way that we can do it is I'm going to click on the second clip again, since that's our base clip at this point. And I want to go up to the viewer, and I'm going to right click, and I am going to grab a still. And when I grab a still, notice what happens over here in our gallery. We now have this reference still with the grade that we applied to clip 3. Now, again, keeping everything organized, I'll right click on this and I'll go to change label, and I'll just call this contrast. So there it is. That's good, but I want to apply it to this clip now. So I'm going to select that clip, and then I go up to the clip in the gallery. I control clip, apply grade. And now notice it's applied to this clip as well. So now if I just take the playhead and drag it over all 3 clips, they should look pretty much the same. And they do. And that is how you apply, you can apply the different grades to the clips in your timeline. This could be really handy if I had, let's say, another 5 clips from that same camera of this girl doing whatever she's doing. I could select them all and right click, apply grade, and boom, it's done for all the clips at once. So that's kind of handy. All right, so we have one more thing I want to show you, and this is what I call maybe the price of admission. It's only available in Studio, but I'm going to jump back over here to my project manager, and I'm going to create a new project, and I'm going to call this Magic Mask and create it. And I am in the color page. I'm going to jump back over to the edit page just for a minute, and I'm going to bring in some more footage. I could bring in footage in the color page. I'm going to do it here in the edit page. So Command I, and I'm going to go to my Magic Mask clip. I'm going to bring this clip in. Change, that's fine. And I'm going to bring it into the timeline and drop it in place. And then let's just play it. So the woman dancing on this pier. Okay, that's cool. Now let's show you the Magic Mask. I'm going to go back to the color page. And I'll reset my interface one more time. All right, so what is this Magic Mask? Again, only available in Studio. It uses the neural engine in Resolve to automatically create masks for either an entire person or specific features like the arms, the face, the legs. Now you need Studio, it's done here in the color page, but essentially it gives you automatic tracking. So where does this live? It lives right down here. So if you hover over Magic Mask, I click on it, I have these controls now. And like I said a minute ago, I can do the entire person or different features. So if I select features, it's a drop down for all these different things. I'm going to stick with person for now because that's what I want to do. I'm going to keep it on the faster quality. You have a lot of other controls here that you can finesse this. I'm fine like that. I'm going to go ahead and make sure I'm at the beginning of the clip. I hit FN left arrow to get me there. Now, how does this actually work? Okay, so I need to go ahead and tell Resolve what I want to track. And all I do for that with the Magic Mask selected is I go out over the subject and I have this dropper and just draw a small line, really a small line. I'll just do that. And now I need to tell Resolve this is what I want to track. And to do that, the same tracker that we saw earlier, the same type of transport controls here. I'm going to click, and it is now tracking. And I have the M1 Max Mac here, so it's doing it pretty fast. I have the USB-C Mac as well with the touch bar. It takes a little bit longer to do it there. So I've tracked it. Great. I don't see any difference. So what did it actually track? Well, I can see that with the mask overlay, which is right here. By the way, I could invert this if I wanted to too, but click on the mask overlay. Now, the mask overlay is also the same color as her dress, so it's a little bit hard to see, but I'll toggle it on and off. I'll turn it off ultimately. What do I do with this? All right, so I'm going to go over to our color wheels. And let's say I want to change the color or the hue. And it changes everything there. I'll Command Z and undo that. Even more impressive, let's say I want to remove all the saturation. And it takes it out. Let's see what that looks like. Hit the space bar to play it. Now you can see, all right, that's pretty impressive to start with, right? And then you can finesse this with those finesse controls back on the tracker, excuse me, on the Magic Mask. That's where all of this comes in, where you can really fine tune it. But as a start, isn't that really cool? I mean, we've come a long way with these editors and what they are able to do and not do. So at that point, you're off and running. You can do whatever you want to do to color grade the person, or if you wanted to invert this and color grade everything else around that person, you could do that as well. The first thing that comes to mind with me, if you remember the movie Schindler's List with the little girl in red, well, here we are doing it now today on our laptop. I don't know how they did it back then. That would have been a lot more work, but that is what I have for you. Are there any questions? Hopefully I can answer them. So I see. So I don't, Rip, I'll be honest with you, I don't do a lot of things with raw files. The color wheel, they're also what you could do with raw footage. I don't know. I don't want to answer that because I might be telling you the wrong thing. Are there any other, thanks, Rip. Are there any other questions? So again, this is, like I said, just diving into this a little bit, much slower, hands-on. We all work the same material. That's in those classes. Definitely look them up. I know there's one coming up on the 16th for the intro class. Take advantage of them because they're out there. And if not, that's all I had for you. So have a great day and thanks for coming.